Hey everybody. Here we are. It's almost 12 hours UTC. So still just sort of getting things set up a little bit here with the scope. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You don't have to look at this big ugly mug anymore. And we'll go over to the camera here and sort of see a little bit of what's going on. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. We are definitely in the midst of the eclipse. And there's a nice drifting into the field of view moon. Kind of hard to see. Getting some weird optical effects too, which I'm not too sure about. But at least that sudden jerking motion, that's me doing that. Just moving around a little bit, seeing what's around. Now, you can see that the telescope is not tracking incredibly well, and I'm still playing with the focus here a little bit too, but not quite sure why it's as wavy as it is. Not quite sure about that. I have to think about that a little bit. But sort of as I suspected, we've got a pretty narrow field of view here. So I can go down to this edge of the moon and go all the way down to the end. Oh, wrong way. So you can see the edge there. And yeah, there's a little bit of a drift. The star alignment isn't quite what it should be. I'm going to play with the brightness settings there. Whoop. The brightness settings a little bit. See if I can change that a little bit. Maybe bring that down a little bit. You can see there's quite a bit of drift in there. Quite a bit of drift. Here's the exposure time. Yeah, quite a bit of drift. Getting a good eclipse though, for sure. Just, I was sort of suspecting that the field of view for this camera is pretty narrow. It's pretty narrow. So being able to actually see, you know, portions of the eclipse, that's probably going to be a little bit hard. Also not flat fielded, so it's pretty funky with that too. But you can see got a big portion of the moon here, and yeah, kind of weird distortions that I'm going to have to think about. I haven't played with this scope or with this camera enough, really enough. So still getting into it a little bit. Let me I can zoom in here and really see, so you can really see maybe a little bit better. Definitely not excellent in any way. And yeah, as I said, those weird distortions are a little funky. Still playing with the focus a little bit. Sharpen it up a little bit. We're looking at a really small portion of the moon and not tracking incredibly well. But we got something going on. So that's, you know, point is to sort of be here and can see anything interesting at all. Oh, we're going the wrong way there. A little bit more of the moon. I see some craters, some cratering. Definitely see that side. But as you can see, my field of view is really, really, really small. So definitely, lunar eclipses are things that should be viewed naked eye or with binoculars. So this is just a little bit of fun, sort of see what I can see in terms of the moon. And yeah, the drifting is pretty awful, and yeah, I'm not quite sure why the camera is, when I move the telescope around, is so wobbly like that. But I think what I'm going to do is, now that I'm in focus, I think I would like to go over to Jupiter instead and focus on that, because the moon is nice, but I'm going to move over to Jupiter. The eclipse has definitely started. Been going on for a little while now. Big chunk of the moon isn't there anymore. All right, so this guy slid over to the Jupiter area, and I'm going to slow down to it because the pointing isn't incredibly perfect either. Let's see if we can get this pointing with a camera is definitely a challenge, especially with these really, really, really narrow fields of view that you have. But what I do is I just sort of scan back and forth. And if I can't get it, I can't get it for you. But I can certainly give it a try here. A very narrow field of view. Really hard to get. Really hard to get anything in there. But I'll scan around a little bit. See if there's anything. See if I can get Jupiter to pop in here. Maybe we'll get lucky. Definitely a lot easier with just a regular old eyepiece, for sure. But once it pops, I should be able to hold it in there, even if we get a little bit of drift. So we'll play around a little bit here, see if I can get Jupiter in there. If not, we'll just go back to the moon. Not going to be too painful about this. Kind of a pain not to be able to get that right in there, but that's part of the process of the hunt. The hunt is part of believe it or not, part of the joy of all of this is standing out here in the relative cold, looking at a black screen, trying to figure out where this guy might be. I know I'm really close, but I also know that my field of view is really small. So being able to grab it in this camera, definitely a challenge. Definitely a challenge. But we should be really close here. Should be really super, super close. I'm going to, one thing that can be done is I can take this camera off and put an actual eyepiece on there, which I'm going to do. So here comes the camera coming off. This is a little webcam. This is a C525 Logitech webcam that I'm using. Put the eyepiece on and look around. Yeah, it's very out of focus, but I'm going to keep the focus and center it up as well as I can. Let's see here. This way, a little bit that way, a little bit here, a little bit there. Should be really close there. Should be really, really close. And of course, the telescope is not tracking incredibly well either. So let's see where that is. Okay. So now I'm gonna. This is what at least amateur astronomers do a lot of, is just scan around, see if we can pick it up here. It should pop in even at this brightness and contrast level. Should pop in. Moon is getting more and more chewed up. And just having no luck this morning seeing this guy. A lot of these things just take practice, and unfortunately I'm sort of a little bit out of practice. So, all right, well, for now, let's go back to the moon. And I am using the go-to stuff, which is a little bit rare for me to do, but with this telescope, there's really no other way to do it. So we'll go back to the moon here. While that's swimming around, I'm going to see if I have any viewers. I do have a viewer. Well, hey there. Glad you could stop by. You know, black screens, that's what astronomy is all about. Pointing on this is pretty bad too. I did a pretty quick and dirty alignment, so it's definitely not optimal in terms of pointing either. Anyway. should be seeing something. Reset the, did I mess with the brightness here or anything? Gain? I don't think I turned it up. Oh yeah, there it is. So maybe that's why I wasn't seeing Jupiter. Is that my my brightness and gain were turned down a little bit. But as you can see, this is a very narrow field of view. I'll go back to this zoomed in version here. Very narrow, very kind of noisy, and definitely drifting. Tracking is definitely not optimal. But that's cool, you know. I'm going to track around a little bit, see if we can pick up anything moderately interesting. So you can see that my field of view, so there's the edge. There's the edge. So you can see that my field of view is huge. There's a few craters there. That's looking under the shadow, it looks like. Drifting, drifting, drifting. Yeah, a little bit of drift. Not too terrible. Not quite sure why when I bump it around it gets all wavy like that, but learning curve. Definitely on a learning curve with this camera a little bit. No worries. Let's see what can be seen here. Definitely seeing shadow-like behavior. The dark part of the moon is definitely got some neat color to it. Let's see if I can. Ooh, it's cold. I'm gonna try to knock down the gain a little bit. And increase the exposure and knock down the gain even more. So yeah, kind of hard to see great detail with this, but that was part of the whole experiment, is to sort of see what's going on with this, and it's tracking pretty well right now. And we've got about a good quarter of the moon blocked at the moment, something like that. Definitely can scan around a little bit, see if there's anything else interesting. It's a really weird optical effects, but you can see, look at that. I mean, my field of view here is just absolutely tiny, right? Because this is only half a degree in size, and I'm looking at a really, really, really small portion of the moon. Very small portion. See if I can play with the focus here. Get that as good as we can. That is as sharp as we can. And I can play with the gain a little bit more. Yeah, well, not too bad. Not too bad. Can't complain too much about that. Gonna have to mess around a little bit with the settings. Find out what's optimal, maybe. Brightness, contrast. So there's less contrast, more gain. Tracking pretty good right now. A little higher contrast. But pretty hard to see with such a narrow field of view. I can turn the color on here. Pretty bizarre coloring. I have no idea why it's gone to purple there. No idea. Playing with the white balance and the brightness and the contrasts. Changing the gain a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Pretty rough, I would say. But there's at least a portion of the moon. I can zoom in on it here a little bit. Get a slightly better view, maybe. But yeah, that's a really tight field of view. Well, the portion of the moon that is being blocked by the shadow of the Earth right now is definitely a nice orangish red color. Pretty nice. I'm going to scan around here on the moon. You can see that I've just got this huge moon here. Huge field of view. Definitely having a pretty rough time seeing anything up there. That's, of course, up here is where the shadow of the Earth is being blocked. So, yeah. Hope that's moderately interesting for you. I think it's a little confusing to look at if you're not used to it. But yeah, I'm sort of on the learning curve with this camera, trying to figure out its basic operations and all that. Not too bad though. Those distortions are kind of weird. A little bit strange. But let's see, we can knock out the contrast a little bit, knock out the brightness a little bit, maybe turn up the gain a little bit. Anyway, that is the surface of the moon for sure. Tracking's pretty good. Can't really complain much about that. Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. Gonna have to play around with this a little bit more for sure. For sure. Oh, definitely cold. Definitely a little bit cold. All right, we're about a third of the way blocked with the moon. Cold morning. I'd definitely like to try to get Jupiter if I can, but yeah, maybe I think I'm just going to hang here. Maybe maybe I'll leave this on the moon and I'm going to go get my my camera, my smartphone camera. Put this on an interesting location. Get some craters in there, maybe. It's a really, really small portion of the moon that we are looking at here. Very small. Just looking at the edge, looking at a few craters there, a few of the obvious ones. Definitely got to work on some things with this camera. Interesting enough, but yeah, the drifting is a little bit of a pain. That's pretty normal. All right, I'm gonna go grab my smartphone, and I will be right back. Hold on. All right, well that's not too bad of a shot of the moon there. Not too bad. Kind of, definitely I would say, if you're not quite sure what you're looking at there, a little bit of confusing. This is a very, very, very small portion of the moon, and I'm looking at the edge of the moon. And I can slew the telescope over to the other edge. You can sort of see this is all the moon. And there's the other edge of the moon. So I'm looking at a very, very, very small portion of the moon. And I'm trying to get in something moderately interesting to look at. There's a couple of craters there. Kind of hard to see. Definitely you have to sort of know what you're looking at beforehand. But yeah, you can see some craters there. Too bad. I'm gonna zoom back out and brighten this up a little bit more. Maybe I'll just change the brightness like that. You can definitely start seeing. I think if we just leave it there, it is definitely going to go. It is definitely going to go dark. Definitely going to go dark. We're almost halfway with the moon being blocked now. And I'm going to set up my smartphone camera. I guess one of the first things that I want to do is go to my live stream and make sure that I'm streaming live. Looks like I am. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not too bad. I can't complain about that. Not really. That's not too bad. No. Okay, so I'm going to go and snap some photos. Snap some photos. Get into the right mode here, pro mode. And I want to go very short exposures. Something like that, maybe. And let's try to focus. Manual focus. Take a couple pictures. A little exposed still. Yep. Go mode. And let's see, I can change the exposure time again. Yeah, unfortunately, this focus really sort of sucks on these things. So yeah, not too interesting there. Pretty good shot of the moon over at the scope, though. Whoop. Distorting it a little bit. Playing with the focus. Looks like that is about as good as focus as we can get. As you can see, it's getting, looks like maybe it's getting darker there at the top. Definitely tracking is pretty good. I'm going to scooch around again here a little bit. Slew around. So you can see there's one edge of the moon. And I can go all the way over to the other side. There's the other edge. So I'm seeing a very, very, very small portion of the moon, right? Very small. And a lot of it is it's getting into shadow. Probably about a little more than halfway in shadow now. So that's pretty cool. Happens from time to time. Yeah, that's the shadow of the Earth. And tracking isn't too bad. I can sort of finagle it into working. I'm wondering if I can go up here into this darker area, okay, which is definitely in the shadow. And I wonder if I can goose up the either exposure time or the gain to be able to pick that up. Changing the exposure time didn't. Changing the gain. Isn't doing much either. It's pretty dark up there. Pretty dark. I'm gonna go back. There it is. I know you're all just on the edge of your seats here. Bit of drift. Bit of drift. Definitely moving into the shadow of the Earth. There's a nice crater there. Sure. Let's see. I'm wondering. Just wondering if there's anything I can do to be able to see the dark side, the shadow side. We're definitely losing the moon now. We're losing it really quick. Let me zoom in again here. So you can see that's all that's left. It's just this little portion here. Everything else is dark. It's that little bit left. And if you watch it, you can probably sort of watch the shadow move as well. Let me put it back on that crater. That seems to be sort of the highest contrast thing, although I probably lost that by now too. Yeah, I've lost that crater. It's in the shadow now too. Oh, there it is. So there it is. Lunar Eclipse number 1 of 2018. Now I can goose up the exposure time here and the gain, sort of bring that back in, so we can do that. Even change the exposure time here, so start maybe move into the shadow a little bit. Change the exposure time a little bit more. Getting into some pretty deep shadow. Pretty deep and dark shadow. Change the brightness. Definitely moving into the shadow there. Yeah. Change that brightness back, down. We can change the exposure time, change that a little bit, just so we can still see some features. Definitely losing the moon quickly. And woo, it's chilly out here. Always gets coldest just before dawn. Yeah, we are definitely losing the moon. Scooch around a little bit, see if there's anything left interesting. There's a couple of craters there. Oh, cold. Okay, I'm gonna do this. And just sort of watch the rest of it go. It's getting really dark here now. Unusually dark for a full moon. By definition, at mid-eclipse, it is full moon. So we're just a few minutes away from the actual full moon. And it is really dark out here. Man, pretty darn cold. Pretty darn cold. But looks like we're losing more of the moon there. When it flashes black like that, that's just me moving in front of the telescope. So don't be alarmed at that. Let's see. Change the gain a little bit. See the edge of the moon towards the lower right there. Tracking is pretty good. Contrast on this camera isn't all that great, but I'm not too worried about it. You can see there's a little portion of the moon left. Got a little bit of drifting, not too bad. Probably play with that a little bit. So I get it to drift a little less. Let's go to this side of the moon over here. You can see that's all that's left. Everything else is dark. A little bit of the moon left now. Oh, cold. Cold, cold, cold. But yeah, the moon's got a good color to it now for sure. Nice and orangey red. Definitely don't think color's going to come out in with this camera, so I'm going to have to mess with that a little bit more. Sure. For sure. Oh, okay, so it's 12:37 UTC. And as you watch this, you can see that shadow moving for sure. I'm going to try to snap another shot with the smartphone. Hope everybody's enjoying this to a certain extent. Definitely a little challenging, but I like a good challenge. Yeah, smartphone isn't really focusing too well on that at all. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to screw that with the camera, and I'm going to go back to the live show here. Definitely getting darker. Just a little tiny bit of the moon left. Everything else is in shadow. Scan around a little bit more. Oh, there's that edge. You can see there's not much left to the moon. Almost completely blocked now. Almost completely blocked. Just that little tiny bit left. Definitely surprisingly dark. Without the moon out, it is nice and dark out here. Just how I like it. But you can see that we're getting pretty close to not having a moon anymore, at least for a little while. Again, I'm going to mess with the exposure time here. I can goose that up and see a little bit more of the moon. In the shadow of the Earth. So now we're looking at the shadow side for sure. Let's go over to one of the edges. That's sometimes easiest to see things that way. A little bit of drift. Okay, so now I'm going to goose this gain up a little bit. Come on, where'd the mouse go? Yeah, it's not, definitely not helping anything. Oh, there we go. Ah, there we go. Okay. Increasing the gain really didn't do much. Keep the contrast a little bit low. Now we are looking in the shadow side now. So this is all shadow side. You can see right down here on the bottom, still getting a bright portion. There's still a bright portion left. But all of this here is in the shadow. So really hard to see things. Contrast is pretty crappy. I can change the brightness again. Play with the exposure time. Play with the contrast a little bit. Let me go over to the edge. As I said, the edge is usually, then at least you can sort of see what's happening. We'll keep it on that lit side. Woo, it's cold. Definitely in cold mode here. For sure. Just a little tiny bit of the moon left. You can goose up the brightness a little bit on this. Change the gain. Doesn't seem to do much. Change the exposure time. That changes a little bit. The contrast. I think that's about good. Whew. Cold. Just basically cold. So I can go to the bigger screen mode here so you can sort of get an idea of what's there. Definitely near the lower left, we're still seeing a little bit of lit moon, but the rest of it, everything above that, is definitely in the dark. And it's looking good out here. Definitely looking good. Naked eye. This is a naked eye kind of event, for sure. Telescope, in this particular case, doesn't really do it justice. But yeah, it's beautifully dark out here. Wonderfully dark. Yeah, pretty awesome. Glad that if you're watching this live, Glad you're here. If you're watching this later, glad you're watching. Pretty cool, pretty fun, and pretty cold. Definitely pretty cold. So that's definitely in the shadow of the Earth now. I've got my exposure time turned way up. I've got my gain turned way up. I've even got the brightness turned way up, and it's getting darker. It's getting darker and darker and darker. As it should, as expected. Scooch around a little bit. See if there's anything interesting. This is all on the dark side. This is in the shadow. So we're now looking in the shadow. You can see that the edge of the moon is not smooth. It's bumpy. There's mountains everywhere on the moon, and there you go. You definitely see there that it is not a smooth edge. No way. So this side here is still a little illuminated, and as you can see, the drift is pretty insane. I'm going to go to the dark side. I don't know, can I go all the way across? Can I see all the way across? Can't quite make it all the way across. It's almost black on the top, even just looking in the visual, with naked eye. But this is all in the shadow, folks. It's all in the shadow. So let me see if I can boost up the contrast a little bit here. That's a pretty good shot. It's just the contrast is absolute crap. Play with the exposure time, play with the gain. Can change the brightness and the contrast a little bit. But yeah, we're looking in the shadow. So the Earth is casting its shadow on the moon, and this is a view in that shadow. And let's just look at the color. Yeah, I see my color is totally wrong. So I'm just going to keep that black and white. That's where the most information is anyway. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But yeah, that's not too bad. Not too bad, not too bad. Looks like we're pretty close to totality now. So let me, I'll do this again so you can just see the whole thing here. I'm watching the live view on my smartphone. Yeah, it's not too bad. Maybe a little dark. Maybe a little bit dark, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Nice and dark out here. The moon is, looks like now it's pretty much gone into totality. It's a nice orangey red color. And I've got at least a good maybe a little less than an hour before moon set. And of course, during full moon, which it is now, I would say, during full moon, the moon is exactly on the opposite side of the sun, so it's going to set when the sun is rising. So just based on that, I know about when the sun's going to rise too. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. I think what I want to try to do is go back to Jupiter, um, see if I can have any luck with Jupiter at all. These because it's such a narrow field of view. Because it's such a narrow field of view, it's really hard to get objects into the field of view. But yeah, I'll give it another try here. Can't hurt, especially when it's so dark out. Let's see if I'll have any luck. Oh, there it is. Amazing. So there's two of the moons of Jupiter. I'm going to try to get all of it in here. So there's Jupiter itself. Doesn't look incredibly good yet. Let me get it so it's tracking relatively well, and then we play with the focus. Tracking isn't great. Tracking isn't incredibly great. Now, let me, should be able to come over here and change the exposure time. And maybe the brightness. And you can start seeing, you can see the two dark bands there on Jupiter. Play with that a little bit. Zoom it up and see. Yeah, see what it looks like on the live. Yeah, could be better, could be worse. Let me go back to a little longer exposure so those moons pop out. Moons are a lot fainter than the planets, so we've got some deadly focus there. So one of those is Io, one of them is Europa. I forget which one is which. And then over here we've got, there's Ganymede and Callisto. So can't quite fit all of them in the same field of view. As I said, this is a very, very narrow field of view, so It's pretty tough to get much of anything in here. Focus is pretty crappy. Play with it. You're gonna have to work with that a little bit. But those two moons, one of them is Europa, one of them is Jupiter. Just trying to get it so it doesn't drift quite as much. Yeah, that's not too bad. Not too bad. As I said, we can play with the brightness setting here, the exposure a little bit. So we can just start bringing out those bands. You can see them a little bit there, I think. Let's see if it looks any better zoomed in. Yeah, you might be able to get a sense of the bands there around that huge planet. The moon is looking pretty amazing in the shadow of the Earth. You know, if you wave and look really hard, you can actually see your shadow too. Good luck with that. That doesn't look too bad on the live view. So yeah, hopefully you're seeing this okay and are enjoying it. I'm just getting colder and colder out here. I'm gonna slew this down. Tracking is definitely not great with this scope, but it's not too bad either. Not too bad. Whoop. Lost it there. But you can definitely see the two equatorial bands really well there. So that's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's a very narrow field of view. So Jupiter's looking really big. It looks like it's under high magnification, but the seeing is really good. And it is pretty dark without this big, bright full moon in the way. So yeah, good time to be doing this kind of stuff. I think that it is about time for me to exit these waters. I want to see if, oh, I do have some viewers. Good. I'm glad you're here. Glad you came by. But I think that I'm going to slow down and I'm going to change the exposure time one more time just so we can see those moons. There they are. So one of those is Europa, one of them is Io. Sorry, I don't remember exactly when. I'll put that in the description. Yeah, I think it is now 1300 UTC. The moon is in full eclipse in the shadow of the Earth. And I think I'm going to end this live broadcast for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this. Whoop. We go back to this. Pop that up. Do a stop sharing. So you can see my dark, ugly mug. Rotate here. You can sort of see me a little bit. Okay. Peace out. And thanks for stopping by and watching. Okay. See you in about 13 hours with the live show at 2 hours UTC. Okay. Peace out.